So, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the first of our lockdown, lowdown with Gower, whatever you want to call it. We had some fun for the Lord's Travellers last time. We're going to hear a little bit more about David's fascinating career and the real battles he had. So, welcome back, David. You still with us?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Are you still feeling well? That's the question you
asked. Hang on. Yep, fine, thanks.
Yeah, good. No temperature?
On the outside, fine. On the inside, complete turmoil.
Yeah. Well, you say turmoil. I mean, what are you actually doing these days? I mean, obviously you were the face of cricket for what 20 years on Sky. Everybody loved you. You did a great job. I think you told me to say that, didn't you? No, you did a great job. And
I told you to say that 2 years ago.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's when we needed the big push.
Ah, yes. Well, no, I think we're all missing you, except there's no cricket, so we wouldn't be able to see you anyway. But
yeah.
Are you missing it yourself?
Well, as you say, there's very little to miss at the moment. But having said that, yes, even in lockdown, there are things going on, things that there would have been things to do. And the one thing I have to say straight away is that having had 20 very, very good years with Sky in the first place, I mean, I'm very happy to look back on that with sort of a mixture of huge pleasure, pride. I mean, I think we all have to sort of take pride in what we do and whatever it is. So, I mean, I loved the role. I have to say that I absolutely loved that role with Sky. I think, it still is a very, very good team, even despite the lack of leadership. But no, it's a great team. People, and so that to have one of my longest standing friends in the game, obviously not as good as you, but Ian Botham alongside for all that time as well. People like David Lloyd, who's great fun. People like Mike Atherton, who I think is outstanding, and Nasser. The two of them are really excellent in the way they analyse a game, look at a game, the way they describe a game, the whole thing. And I think it is still a very, very good team. They just need some cricket now, some fresh cricket to commentate on. So yes, I had a fantastic time. Very grateful for every moment of that. But the truth is, yes, I'd still like to have that post right now. I'd still like to think, or I still do think, there was life left in the old dog. So it would have been excellent and very good to have another few years of that to look forward to. Right at the moment, there is just one big long gap. I mean, and obviously I'm not alone in that. I mean, a lot of people are in an infinitely tougher position at the moment. It is. I mean, in fact, to be honest, doing things like this is good because we're long-standing Taverners. We know what goes on with the Taverners. We are huge supporters. We know exactly what we're doing with this, and it's a lovely way, just as it were, keeping Nick. As you know, I was never a great man for nets during my playing days, but this is, in a sense, keeping in training.
You were the man who brought
talking to our friends and public out there, which is.
You were the man who introduced optional nets. I think, would that be right?
That was very, very carefully thought through. I mean, the optional nets. Now you mention it, goes back to the West Indies, that tour of '86, where again, I mean, things didn't exactly go according to plan as far as we were concerned. And halfway through that series, we're coming second by a distance already. We've lost in Barbados in 3 days. Everyone's very disgruntled, players, press, the many people who'd come to Barbados to watch that game, wondering what to do. I mean, how on earth can you wonder what to do on an island like Barbados? You're given a couple of extra days off. Grab it with both hands. There are so many lovely spots up there, but I know that's not quite the point. And of course, we as the team in the thick of it, in the firing line, people wanted to, what are we going to do about this? But I can honestly say this: when I said to the team, right, we've got a few days off, we obviously need to try and raise the game a bit, practice at some stage. I said, if anyone wants to go for a net, the day after the game, you can, but no compulsion. They're there. They weren't very good nets. They were completely shot. I mean, they'd been used for a week. 3 or 4 days before the game, 3 days during the game, they're completely shot. And if you are, in all seriousness, what is the golden rule about practice? You need to gain some benefit from it. So if you've got good nets and good bowlers, good conditions, and you can set your stall out to have a good session, a good 30, 40 minutes batting, and at the end of it, you'll have gained something from it. That's good news. All I could see happening there was people getting even more dented, their confidence even more dented, because the ball was going to be leaping from a length from the dust bowls that were left of the net. So I didn't honestly see any potential gain from having nets, apart from the PR of actually saying, right, we've lost a game, we're disappointed, we're going to put some work in here and try and improve. What made it worse, to be honest, and again, if you probably not tell people this, what made it slightly worse was that same day I was having windsurfing lessons from a guy called Stuart Sawyer on the south of the island, who was a world champion windsurfer. They were fruitless, I can tell you. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the water rather more than on it, but that didn't go down too well either. So it's one of the bugbears of my career, it seems, that there were certain things that happened off the field that maybe upset a couple of people now and again. That little sort of...
You were involved most of the time.
That sort of devil may care, sort of opportunities too good to miss. For instance, windsurfing with a world champion, that sort of stuff.
Yes. Okay. Well, what I wanted to do was talk to you about the Ashes. But actually, now we're in the Caribbean. It's feeling rather pleasant for me, anyway. You didn't have to play all those Test matches against them. Can you try and explain to us what it was really like facing that battery of fast bowling day in, day out? Oh, that's it. And that's where you were when everyone else was having a net.
Well, there we are. See, look, the surf's up. It must be the south part of Barbados there. Just enough to get a windsurfer up. Plenty of breeze.
Where's your rum punch?
Glass of water.
Yeah. Okay, I believe you. I still want you to answer this question, because there's no one better than you to explain what it was like in the middle there. 5 Test matches against a battery of fast bowling past your ears, on average pitches maybe, or pitch didn't matter?
Pitches weren't too bad. I mean, they seem to get a lot of runs, so they can't have been that bad. It's a tough thing to explain, even to cricketers, how tough it was, because I think nowadays, if you look, for instance, at the quality of the bowling in international cricket nowadays, there are some exceptionally fine bowlers who would be exceptionally fine in any era. But I think if you look back to the 80s and the West Indies then, to have a choice between Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Joel Garner, Colin Croft, Malcolm Marshall, Sylvester Clarke, who hardly ever got in the side, Wayne Daniel, and Hartley Elaine, and by 86, Patrick Patterson, the extraordinary talent they had in fast bowling alone, let alone those brilliant batsmen, Greenwich, Haynes, Richardson, Richards, Dujon, keeper who got hundreds. I mean, they had a brilliant team. And from our point of view, the pace was the biggest problem. Whenever we put them under pressure, whenever we thought we might have under pressure as a bowling side and put their batsmen under pressure, even if we got them out for, say, 150, 200 somewhere, they had the bowling resources to get themselves back in the game. So I mean, that was sadly the story in 84, and was once again the story in 86. And the sort of sheer relentlessness of that pace attack, it's very hard to explain. But for instance, if you bat for an hour, which is probably only 6 or 7 overs, but you bat for an hour against Michael Holding and Andy Roberts, and they have drinks and they change the bowling, and it's Joel Garner and Malcolm Marshall. That's morning done. That's if you survive that, you're doing okay. Start again in the afternoon, so any 2 of those 4. You might get Viv Richards bowling an over of off spin just before tea, and even then Viv was so powerfully built that he would have a couple of looses, then bowl you a bouncer as well off 2 paces. So I mean, it was that sheer relentlessness of the whole thing. I mean, I have to say, whatever else happened in the game, my 100, I mean, people like Lammy, who I take my hat off to, Alan Lamb, who got 3 or 4, or more, I forget now, but he got hundreds against the West Indies. Big like that.
I think he got 6.
He might. Sorry, if he got 6,
don't give him too much
even
credit.
bigger hat to take off in his direction. But yeah, Lammy was brilliant against them. Graham Gooch, of course, got some superb runs against the West Indies. I ended up only ever getting a 100 in Sabina Park on the previous tour, the 81 tour, was it 80, 81, somewhere around there. And that was one of my proudest moments because of the the quality of the attack against you and the pace. And okay, it was a great pitch in many ways. It was quick and bouncy. But once you got in, if you stuck around for a little while, it seemed okay. And the people who got runs against the West Indies and consistently, Lammy we just mentioned. For instance, for Australia, Alan Border, brilliant, absolutely brilliant player against that fast bowling, with or without helmets. Took a few blows, as everyone did in that era. But the guys who got runs against them had to be seriously good players. So that was what made the West Indies, I think, that strength in both departments. That's what I think made them the finest side ever. I have an axe to grind for sure. I have 10 test matches as captain against them without a single positive result, which means I have a very, very big axe to grind. But I would stand by the fact that I think they are the opinion that I think they're the best ever. People would say to me, for instance, talking about the Australians, I mean, the side that followed through the 90s, the Australian side that dominated through the 90s, as effectively as the West Indies had done through the 80s. McGrath, Warne, all these people. People would say the West Indies never had a Shane Warne. And the very, very easy answer to that is they never needed one. No. That power of fast bowling was plenty good enough to get them out of trouble whenever they were in it.
Did you have a plan when you walked in and you had Garner, Roberts, Marshall, whoever it was? Did you have a plan over your cup of tea in the morning? What your plan might be? Did you feel every day was different? Sometimes you were going to take them on, sometimes you were going to survive, or was it just what you've always done in your career? See ball, hit ball.
More to the latter. I mean, the honest truth is that if you are expecting to have to bat against the West Indies the following day, it's probably a more sleepless night than a restful night. Your mind is going to be jangling with all sorts of thoughts. Survival is one. It's a very primeval instinct to want to survive without being hit and hurt. And that works for a lot of people. But sort of take it to the next level, which is how do we get a few runs as well? Well, I have to say my entire career was largely based on instinct. Whatever planning I did overnight or the day before quite often would be superseded very quickly by events. And if I'm honest, the first thing you do when you walk out to bat in a test match in the Caribbean in the 80s, you just want to see the first ball. As a sort of reminder that you can see it, because people, and it was interesting. I've talked to a lot of players, really good players, who didn't necessarily see that ball entirely clearly from the hand. I always used to think that on a good day I would see it from the hand and play it from there. I know some very good players who would only kind of pick it up halfway down. And I think that's a huge disadvantage, because if you watch it from the hand, you've got 0.4 of a second. If you're only picking it up halfway down, you're down to 0.2 of a second. And however good your instincts and your techniques, you're running out of time very rapidly. So you need that first sighting. So as long as you see the first ball, then you're in with a chance. I mean, I say to people when they ask about this, there are probably half a dozen balls from my career I've still not seen. Couple from Michael Holding in the Caribbean, couple from Sylvester Clarke at the Oval, where, and Sylvester was an extraordinary bowler. It seemed effortless. He could change pace, go from what felt like a manageable 85 to an unmanageable 95 in the space of two balls. And I remember it was Sylvester at the Oval, Leicestershire against Surrey one year, might have been Hampshire against Surrey, but you're pulling him for four, one bounce, four, square leg, thinking that was nice, that was a good shot. Not looking him in the eye, of course. Just letting him get back to the end of his mark, taking guard again. And the next one, I remember getting the same position. So the bat is coming through somewhere here, and the ball goes through, whizzing past this ear. Noticeably quicker, no apparent change in action or effort. And that's what makes the quick men frightening. That's what makes them effective. Because if they can do that, then you really have got to bat on yourself, with yourself and with them every ball. So, I mean, yes, of course, there are quick men around now. And whether it's 90, 92, 95, that's still quick. I mean, let's face it, you're still running out of time very quickly every time you face them. But I think it was just the sheer numbers in that era that made it that much tougher.
Yeah, before we may leave Caribbean and go to Australia, I'm not sure, because we've got the question. I must get these questions over to you. If you could pick your ideal test venue anywhere in the world, where would it be? And who would you play against? So I think you can take whatever team you want, any team. This was from Louisa Davis. Thank you, Louisa.
Louisa, I think I'd play against Chris's school team. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually know of all the places.
Behind, flashing at a wide one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Almost definitely. I love playing at home. I would go to Australia because a lot of my favourite times came in Australia. I loved the Ashes. Was lucky to have some success in the Ashes over the years personally and as a captain. But I love playing. I mean, Melbourne is an awesome stadium to play in because of the sheer numbers, the size. Sydney is nicer in many ways because you've still got a great atmosphere and you've got some of the history with the old pavilion. I mean, sitting in the old pavilion, that Victorian pavilion at the SCG, in the same rooms as the greats from 40, 50, 60 years ago and beyond, gives you that sense of history. So I'd play a game at the SCG, and yeah, I'd play against Australia because of all the many things in the history of our game, the Ashes goes back almost as far as the first international contest of all time, which was, quiz question for you, who was that? Yes, you got it right. USA versus Canada in about 1845.
Yeah, very good, very good.
But the Ashes has that huge history. So every time you are part of the Ashes, you feel as though you are part of that history. So yes, I would go back to Sydney, play another Ashes game there and win.
Perfect. Okay, well, you did win against Australia. You won as captain. You had an incredible summer. The big thing I remember about that summer was your double 100. I think it was Edgbaston. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
What a summer that was.
It was, yeah. I mean, that's that. When you look back over, the ups and downs of 15 years of international cricket. The absolute dream is to captain England to victory in an Ashes series and make some runs. So that all happened for me in '85. By the time we got to Birmingham, it was the 5th test out of 6. It was 1-1. I got a few runs in the book, but we hadn't sort of got ahead in the series, and it was a series we needed to win to get the Ashes back. So it was starting to get really, really tense from that point of view. So Edgbaston, we stuck them in. There was some weather around, chipped away. When we got to bat, sort of 2 or 3 days later, we got runs quickly. The double was great. Gat got 100. Beefy comes in. Tim Robinson gets 100. Beefy comes in, smacks. First ball for 6 in the pavilion, that sort of thing. And then we have to start bowling them out again.
Bowling? Who was the bowler? I'm trying to remember. Craig
McDermott, who was no slouch. I mean, yes, he'd been in the field for a couple of days by then, but, Beefy with the mullet, no helmet, the mullet flowing in the breeze. The Duncan Fernley, poof, just smacked it straight in the pavilion for 6. So we declare it 600 old. We've got a day and a half to bowl them out. Or a day in a session to bowl them out and try and win the game. And if you remember, our great friend, Richard Ellison.
Oh, yes.
Ellie, that evening, bowled beautifully. The one he got border with was just the absolute dream. Sort of swinging into the left-hander, nipping away, clipping the top of the off stump. And, AB had the good grace to look a little bit bemused. I mean, he was their best player. And that was a fantastic wicket. So we had I think we had 5 down at the end of that 4th day. Elliot got 4 of them, something like that. And so come the 5th day, we needed just 5 to win the game, 2-1 up. Morning comes, it's drizzling. It is that horrible English, mizzly, drizzly stuff that hangs around, doesn't go away. AB is sitting in his civvies in the dressing room alongside ours, ground floor in Birmingham in those days, giggling away, looking at me as if to say, you're not going to win this game. But we get out there, a little bit later, it clears up, we get out there, and it's we just need these wickets. But Wayne Phillips is playing well. Flipper is going well. We've got fielders everywhere close. Your runs are no longer the issue. We just need those wickets. And we need to get him out. And there was this great moment where, again, one of those turning points in a career, in a series, whatever it might be. He hits one off Phil Edmonds. So Edmonds over the wicket, trying to find something in the rough. There's not much there. Hits it into the offside. I've got Lammy by my side at silly point. I'm at slightly sillier point. And I'm watching this thing and I see it hit the boot 3 or 4 inches above the ground and it lobs up.
Yes.
One of the easiest catches of all time for me. We appeal, umpires give it out. So off Flipper has to go. And that was the turning point. To this day, Flipper says it must have bounced on the ground. AB, who was 100 yards away, ground level in the pavilion, swears blind it must have bounced on the ground. Many years before DRS and all the rest of it, no way of proving it. I will tell you from my heart here, that definitely did not bounce on the ground. It was a genuine dismissal. It was a career life-changing dismissal as far as I'm concerned. And if AB and Flipper have any doubts about it at all, they can look in wisdom.
You took it well as well. You know, it was a nice.
Well, easy to panic. Easy to panic. I've seen those easy ones dropped.
So then you went to the Oval, where you actually collected the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, right. Just to remind you, we needed to make sure we didn't lose the Oval Test match. Otherwise, a drawn series means Australia keep the ashes. So again, red alert, but our confidence is good. AB's tourists are looking a bit weary by now. First day at the Oval, 1985. I'm at number 3. I'm in relatively early, within the first sort of 45 minutes or so. And Graham and I bat for most of the rest of the day. So I get 150, he gets 180. That was one of those innings for me, which I would say I played 99% as well as I could. And, that pitch, again, if you go back to that question, where would you like to play test matches? Well, the Oval was a great pitch for me. I mean, I loved the bounce. I loved the pace of the Oval. I loved it when it came through. And that was just a great day because we set up basically a big total. We set up the chance to win. We got the chance to make the follow on. As captain, I said, yes, that's what they're going to do. They're down, they're out. And they were. So we were able to win the game before the rains came on day 4. Able to stand there at the Oval. And of course, the iconic photograph for any man, any England captain, is to be standing there somewhere, whether it's in England or in Australia, with what looks like the ashes in your hand. It isn't, of course, the real thing. That is closely guarded and never allowed to leave Lords, or seldom allowed to leave Lords. But it feels like it, looks like it. Damn it, it is the ashes. And standing up there, although it's only sort of thumb and forefinger required, looking down at the crowd below you from 3 floors up, Peter West from the BBC there, AB alongside. That is a proud, proud moment, even though it has a sort of sense of sort of ridiculousness, because the people downstairs can hardly see what's going on. They can't see the ashes from 3 floors down. It's like a scene from the life of Brian, the stoning scene. What's going on up there? What's happening? What's he holding? So, I mean, your proudest moment is slightly devalued, but at least, the photographs that you can look at any day thereafter prove that it actually happened. And that is special. I mean, that is something to sort of cling to and treasure for a whole life.
Wasn't that, when you mentioned Peter West, wasn't that the moment where you did that interview on the balcony there and he brought up the question of the West Indies to follow, yeah. The West Indies and the Caribbean? Was that the one, the interview?
Absolutely. There is video footage to prove it. Peter says, we're on the back of an Ashes win. There is euphoria around the country. We're all happy. We're all happy people and trying to make the most of it. But he'd be quite right to say, well, the next thing coming up, which would have been 3 or 4 months down the line, starting the following year, the next thing coming up was Tour of the West Indies. And I said to him, firmly tongue-in-cheek, said, well, I'm sure they'll be quaking in their boots, knowing full well that by then it was going to be Viv Richards captaining the West Indies, but still with some of those same great players, Haynes and Greenwich at the top and all those fast bowlers. So my honest hope was that with a stronger side this time, we might be more competitive. For instance, with the likes of Graham Gooch back opening the innings and that sort of thing, with both them in flying form, that sort of thing. I thought we could do better in the Caribbean than we had done in England 2 years beforehand. But History tells us that was over-optimistic. History tells us that West Indies just had the firepower. And we did do quite a lot of things wrong.
Well, I was going to say, Beefy had a lovely time. He enjoyed the trip.
Well, I mean, truth be told, Beefy arrived in the Caribbean and he had an image of himself, and because he bowled quite sharply against the Australians and enjoyed it, he had the image of himself being sort of the Michael Holding of the England team. So he raced him with a new ball first couple of test matches, trying to bowl quick, not using all his natural skills necessarily. And I was at cover, so I had a very good view of the ball fizzing past me on a regular basis from the bats of Gordon Greenidge and Desmond Haynes, as I fetched it back from the boundary, still with 4 slips and 2 gullies in place, because that's what my mate wanted. Now, in hindsight, I should have been a bit stronger with that. But I must be one of the few people who've ever had to go to Ian Botham in a hotel room in Trinidad and say, I think ahead of the 3rd test match, just want to say that we nearly dropped you, because it got to that. And he looked at me and just said, okay. Which it's not one of those ones you need to have, we've known each other for a long time by then, 15 years playing alongside each other, give or take, whatever it might be. You know each other intimately from that point of view. And as a captain, it doesn't need me to go into a half-hour dissection of what he's been doing right and what he's doing wrong. He's got pride. One of the great things about Ian is immense pride and self-belief. So to tell him that we nearly dropped him, had him carrying the drinks in a test match where he'd normally assume be the first name on the team sheet.
Yeah,
that was enough. So I mean, that was a private moment, which I sort of remember that very, 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 very sharply. And I think the simple truth is, although he took it on board, and things did change a wee bit. By then, of course, a lot of the damage is done, and the West Indies are now on a roll again. And they were still the stronger side, despite us being a better side than we had been 2 years previously. Honest truth, they were the stronger side.
Oh, well, enough of them again. We don't want to hear about the 100% record you had against them as captain.
We share that, of course.
We've got a couple of questions here before I let you go. The first one is, who is the best player you've ever played with? And then against as well, Charlotte Wilson wants to know.
Okay. Well, actually, we kind of mentioned them both very recently. The best player in international cricket I ever played against was Viv Richards, head and shoulders above the rest of them. I mean, if you broaden it to all cricket, well, actually Barry Richards, so the other Richards was a hell of a player too.
Yeah.
But in terms of my test career, Viv was up there because he was the most literally intimidating batsman I've ever seen. He walks out to bat with that swagger. And I know bowlers who've gone, basically quailed at the sight of him.
Yeah.
So Viv was brilliant. I mean, it's a very simple decision to nominate him. In terms of people that I played alongside for England, again, very easy. Because
Don't embarrass me.
Sorry, Christopher Cowdrey was simply the finest all-rounder that I have ever seen in my life. That tour of India was singularly the finest performance anyone on and off the field has put in. But for the record, and for the question,
in second place,
the same citation for Ian Botham. On and off the field, an extraordinary character, huge self-belief, huge talent, magic moments. And I'm very happy to say that so far I've lived to tell the tale, because the toughest part, forget the Caribbean in 1986, toughest part is being a friend of Ian's off the field, where demands are enormous.
We won't go there. That's a whole new series, a whole session we could have on that.
Well, he's a very generous man, and he loves his wine. So what more can I say?
Plenty of it. Right.
Actually, that reminds me, I'm still waiting. Now that he's in the wine business again, on his own bat, as it were, with Botham Wines. And good luck to my mate with Botham Wines. But I'm still waiting for the sample case. I've dropped it on Twitter, countless times, waiting for sample case from Botham Wines. But if he wants to do it without me, that's up to him. Still waiting.
Well, I guess he might have drunk it.
He's
I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
What is the best match you've ever played in, and also one that you've commentated. Peter Goldsmith wants to know best match you played in and the best one you've commentated on.
All right. Well, I suppose I've got to say the Headingley 81 game, the Botham game with the 147, and Bob Willis, the lovely late great Bob Willis. He has 8 wickets in the Australian second innings, because that was an unbelievable atmosphere on that final day. That last couple of the Botham innings we watched with hangovers, so we missed half of that. The Willis wickets, we were all there willing him on, and the best seats in the house, fielding on that field as we won the game that turned the series and made reputation. So that has to be up there. Although we played in Melbourne one probably a couple of years later, where we won it by about 2 or 3, where Jeff Miller caught the rebound off ChrisCowdrey, again off Ian Botham, to win a game we should have won easily, win it by 2-3-2, I think we won that by. So we played in a couple of close games like that. But that Headingley game 81 is so iconic that I just have to say I was there. Didn't do much, I was there.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, what was the second part of the question?
Rating, is there one particular memory?
The commentary days. Well, I've been there for both Brian Lara world records, 375 and the 400 in Antigua. But having said that, it's nice to be around for something literally record breaking, but they weren't great games. You were just there to see someone bat brilliantly and take advantage of a good pitch and set records. I much preferred actually watching him in Sydney. Before I worked for the Beeb and before I worked for Sky, I had a couple of summers for them, winters for me, working for Channel 9 in Australia. And I did the World Cup in 92, which we should have won. So I was there for that World Cup final in 92 in Melbourne, which Pakistan saw us off in, sadly. But great for Imran, great for his team. But I was there the following winter to watch Brian Lara, a young Brian Lara, make 275, I think it was, at the SCG. And that was when he was making his reputation. It's when Warne was coming into the side, so not a fully fledged, not the real deal yet, but that was an early day for Shane Warne, who went a long way and to all parts of the ground. But watching Brian Lara there, as a young man, he can only have been to early 20s, you had that feeling there that you are watching the start of something very important, someone who's going to be a major figure in the game. And so there are plenty of other, there were little things like Nasser Hussain putting the chair on my foot in Brisbane, which nearly cost me my commentary career, because I could easily have said something different to the simple that came instinctively. There are lots of words one can say on TV that they don't like, but I managed to avoid doing that. That's at the funnier end of the scale, but that Lara innings at the SCG was very much at the more impressive end of it. Okay,
well, I want to finish on a comment about Brian Lara, because the way he hit the ball just in front of square, perhaps just a bit nearer extra cover than cover, was one of the second most graceful shots that I ever remember. You played the similar shot, but yours was even more graceful. And everyone will always remember you for that beautiful shot you played. And occasionally Dujon got in the way, but you can't have everything. We have great memories. You've been a great friend for many, many years, and thanks for joining us again. And thanks again for supporting the Lord's Taverners, because don't forget, this is all being done in the aid of our truly exceptional charity, the Lord's Taverners. And in the next few months and weeks, I hope you'll all stay safe and well. But for the next couple of minutes, I'd urge you to sit back and take a look at this film, which showcases the remarkable work that this charity does with disadvantaged and disabled people across the UK. Bye for now.
If I wasn't attending these wicked sessions, I would be sitting at home and doing nothing right now, or I'd be on the streets.
We are using cricket as a tool for social inclusion. I used to see the same kids standing about in the streets, throwing about bricks. Now, what do I see them? I see them play cricket in Maxwell Park.
With the Wickets programme, what it's done is you're getting rid of the problem without criminalising the young people.
He come out of his shell, he can now interact with others, and I see a lot of confidence in him.
It's nice to know that you do have a voice and you can try and change things.
We have children here with severe autism. We also have children here with profound and multiple and complex needs.
For our kids to see that actually they can be independent, they can get outside the school gates. Without the minibus, we can't do that.
What it's given me is the chance to compete in sport, which is something I've always wanted to do and I never really thought I might get the chance to do.
It just gives you that concentration and those friends that you can spend time with.
Disability sport is amazing at bringing people together. It almost makes you grateful that you've got the disability.
Yes! If somebody had said to me 2 years ago, you will see Riley playing cricket, I have today.
When the delivery was arrived, the kids that basically collected the kit they were so appreciative of basically what they received because it was like Christmas for them.
Equipamento que agora é só meu, vai ser o taco, vai ser meu, a luva, foi muito legal, muito bom.
It was just priceless, it doesn't have a value.
His condition that's been aided by cricket will not define who he is.
It's helped me with my anger and my relationship because I don't really have any friends outside of school.
The more connections you have, the more friends you have, because to be honest, you don't want to be on your own.
I didn't think this would ever happen, but now it is happening. And I'm getting a chance to move forward.
It's not just friends, it's family. This is family for me.
It's not just pride, it's just happiness, it's just contentment that he's got a purpose.
All we could see was what he couldn't do, whereas now we're beginning to see what he can do.
It gives everything, it means everything.